Alright, welcome back to part 3 of the KX65. What we're going to be doing today is draining coolant and oil. We'll be changing out the water pump seal. So what's happening is the oil and water is mixing together, so it's either going to be our head gasket or our water pump seal. So we'll do the water pump seal first and go from there. Alright, so now that's been drained, we'll just pop our bolt back in. As you can see in here, this is our water. You can see there it's got something in there. It's separating already. So next up, we'll drain the oil. So we'll let that drain out. So just the smell of this oil and the water, it doesn't smell like fuel. So that leads me to believe that our crank seals are okay. So this is water and oil contaminant. So yeah, either head gasket or water pump seal. As you can see here, here's our oil. Main thing I'm looking for is there's no sparkly bits at the bottom. So that's a good sign. You do not want metal in your oil. Alrighty, so now that we've drained the fluids, we can start taking off the water pump with these bolts here. Take the hoses off, disconnect our clutch cable, take our kickstart off, remove our rear brake and the bolts to take the clutch cover off. Alrighty, so now we've undone these 3 screws, 3 bolts. Take this off and put a new gasket on its way. Impeller fins look fine. It all looks in good shape. You can see they're all still in good shape, so that impeller will be fine to go back on. So I've just taken the impeller off. I'll double check, but I'm quite sure there's supposed to be a washer behind that. As you can see here straight away, the water pump seal. And you can see straight away that the water pump seal is definitely an issue. So we'll get all this side cover off and inspect all this and replace it, and that'll be that issue done. The next step is to get this kickstart off. This bolt, for the life of me, I can't get it undone. Allen key, like that I was knackered. So I'm going to show you a little trick. There's 2 ways you can tackle this. You can either weld a bolt to it and undo it like that. I don't really want to introduce heat into this shaft if I don't have to. So what I've done is cut a little groove here. Now I can put something in here, tap it down, and hopefully that'll get under that bolt. So I've tried all my tricks, I can't get this undone for the life of me. I've even cut a slot in it to get a decent sized flat end in there, putting heaps of pressure. I still can't get it. So the only next thing to do is get that in there and weld that on, see if we can get it off like that. So as you can see, we welded that on there. Let's see if we can undo it. As you can see, someone's put some Loctite on there. Unnecessary for this bolt, in my opinion. And if you do use Loctite, they've obviously used a freaking strong one. And the reason I've been able to get it off is because when I've welded, it's heated up the Loctite and I've been able to get it out. But there's a fair chunk of it all through those threads there and that big blob that was there. So if you're going to use Loctite, use or for a bolt like this, that really it doesn't matter if it falls out. All you can do is lose your kickstart. I'd be using low or medium strength Loctite so you can undo the damn thing. Alrighty, so now we've removed our clutch cable, our rear brake assembly, kickstart, taken off the water pump housing and impeller. We're ready to take the last 2 bolts out and take the side cover off. What I like to do when I'm taking the bolts off is get a bit of cardboard and lay them out how they come out of the cover, as some of them are different sizes. That way you know the right size is going back in the right hole. Righty, so now our cover's off. You see this is our water pump shaft. We'll go over the case in a minute. You can definitely see in the bottom here our milky oil. Righty, so here's the inside of our side cover. This is where the kickstart goes through on the other side. This is our water pump shaft goes through here. Just again, look at our sludge, but there is like no metal shavings. What I am going to look at here is this bearing, which is not seized or anything, but as you can see, it's not pressed in flush with the case. So I'm going to do a bit of research and see if that is supposed to be flush with the case. That could be another issue if that's not seated in properly, and there's not the correct amount of pressure on the seals, because you've got an inner seal and then the outer seal as well. Not going to be sealing properly, and that's another reason why we could have leakage, just because whoever's put this bearing in may not have put it in all the way. On that, I've got another bearing coming anyway, so we might get this bearing out and replace everything while we're here anyway. But just having a look at that inner seal, you can see that imperfection there. So that's where the shaft runs through, so that could have been letting a tiny bit of water through. Right, so we've got our inner seal and bearing out of there. One way you can do this, sorry I didn't film it, is to remove the bearing. It's from this side here. You pop a socket in there and tap that through, and that'll be enough to just get that bearing out. So we've got a new bearing, 2 new seals and a new gasket on its way, so we'll get them fitted. And righty, so we've got our water pump rebuild kit here. Got our two seals, a washer and gaskets. Bearing is in the freezer. Don't mind the noise, that's the washing machine. So I've got the bearing in the freezer. What we'll do is we'll heat up the case here just slightly after the bearing is out of the freezer, and that'll make for a good fitment there. We've got a socket here that's going to fit on the outside race of the bearing, not the inside. Never hit a bearing on the inside race. It'll fit on the outside, and we'll tap it in until it's seated onto this lip here. Alrighty, so we've got our bearing in there. Just heated up the case slightly with this. Only slightly, you don't want to be cracking anything or warping anything. Bearing was in the freezer for probably 20 minutes. So that's in there now. It does sit up slightly. Not as much as the other one. But as you can see, it's down as far as it needs to be. To be doing the right things. Right, now that the bearing's in, the case is cooled down, we're putting our seals in. So it's important they go in the correct way. So this first one here, the flat face goes in towards the oil. Get your shit off my finger. So the flat face goes in, and it goes in that way. So that's in there. And you can see it's a bit tricky to see on here, but it's up against that bearing. The next one that will go in is this water seal. Used a little bit of assembly lube just on this one here, and this one here we need the flat face facing the water. But what I did notice when I was pulling it apart, the impeller goes, like the shaft sticks through here and then the impeller bolts onto that, but there's a washer that's supposed to be there, and when I was disassembling it, it was not on there. So in the kit, the washer did come with it. Alrighty, so our next step is to put our gasket on. What I like to do is put a bit of gasket maker on each side of the gasket, just in case there's a little imperfection that'll take up any slack of it. So we don't need a whole heap, we'll just smear some all around it. Alrighty, so now we've got some of that on, we'll pop our gasket on. Also, before installing the case, don't forget to put this back in here. I've just put a little bit of assembly grease on that just to sort of hold it in place. Sorry, I didn't film putting that on, guys. I'm under a bit of a time crunch and I don't have the tripod with me. So I've just put that on and I've left a bit of a gap here So what I'm going to do now is put my bolts in just to make sure the gasket all lines up all around there, and then I'll start tightening that and push that on as well. So alrighty guys, so when I took this off, you're going to put a washer on here first, then the impeller, and then the bolt. So when I took the bolt out of my impeller, the washer was actually on the wrong side of it. So look, I've got a new washer with the kit anyway, but I'm going to use the original washer, but they've just, whoever's done it, had it on the wrong side of the impeller, which made this impeller extremely close to the housing. So I'm going to pop that on there with the washer on that side, because that's how the diagram shows to do it. So we've got all our bolts here in the order that they come off, just because some of them are longer than others, and you don't want to be putting the wrong bolt in the wrong hole. So, alrighty, that's all on with the washer behind it. We'll pop our gasket and housing on. Also, yeah, I like to put a bit of gasket maker on each side of all the gaskets. And we can put our clutch cable on, brake assembly, and kickstart. Right, so we're now all back together. I'm just going to source the bolt for the kickstart. Coolant in. This is the coolant I've used here, premix. And this is the transmission oil here that we've used. Alrighty, kickstart bolt is on. What I did forget to mention before, when you're topping up your coolant, just on top here, if you undo this bolt here with your radiator cap off, it'll let your coolant come through the head and bleed the air out of the system. So I'll get it started, let it run for a bit, top up the coolant. And that's how you change your water pump seal and bearing on a 04 KX65 or RM65, same thing. I've actually found someone that wants to buy this prior to me doing the fork seals on it, so this could be the last episode, but I'll keep you updated. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next project.